Okay, on kind of the same issue, maybe if anyone here watches the news at all, you may have noticed that there was this little, let's call it a concern about a person with an Islamic name from an Islamic country that was brought in on our taxpayer dollars, brought into this state to be a threat to us, because the term that the FBI was saying that this guy was going to go shoot up a polling place. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say right up front, I don't trust anything the FBI tells me. There's no doubt in my mind that someone was convinced that they needed to do something, and between them and the CIA, I would not be surprised if it was co-opted with them what they were doing to get to this point, because I think that they're so beat up that they need to say, hey, look, we did something good, see? Even though they may have set quite a bit of it up. So I think that this is one, but be that as it may, let's go ahead and take it on face value, and let's go ahead and say that this is exactly what this person's full intention was. Well, under current Oklahoma law, for you to carry your gun while you go vote at a polling place is some gray area issues. For one, sometimes polling places are at churches. That's private property. Sometimes polling places are at public schools. That's public property. Sometimes polling places are in libraries, and we used to do one in a person's private home. So you've got this mix of spots that you've got to deal with on law, and because Oklahoma law, like maybe you guys have heard me mention, is incredibly stupid, that if it's a different rule, if it's at a school, it's a different rule if it's a church, and so on. Now, we got it passed a few years ago. Well, let me say this first. Even if it's a church, if the church is paid, let's just say $100 for that election to take place there, so basically the county is leasing that church, it becomes a public property for that day during that event, because it's a lease agreement. So if that takes place under current law, like any public property, that's with the exception of a school, you can enter with a firearm, say concealed, and as long as you're not denied entrance into the property, if it's discovered you have that firearm and you refuse to leave, that's when it becomes an issue, which would be trespassing. So this is under current law. Now, if you're on a school property and you leave your car with the firearm on you, you've already committed a misdemeanor crime. So, and like I said, then if it's on private property, say a church, you can say even if the church had no gun sign, it's the same thing. If it's discovered you have, they can deny you entrance into it, run you through metal detectors if they want, and then they can deny you entrance, or if they don't deny you, you go in there, it's discovered, and you're told to leave, you have to leave. So it's basically the same thing with the exception of school properties. So what we're doing is I've actually already started working this, and we are going to make sure that at a minimum you can carry a concealed handgun while you're at a polling place, no matter where the polling place is, whether it be a public property, a public school property, or whether it be private property, or if there's some other exception that I'm missing, that no matter what, during that polling time, you would be able to carry while that time. Also, I'm going to leave the language that says any person, which should include anyone that's in the poll that's working that polling that day. They should be able to defend themselves. We have to be a deterrent, because you guys have seen it, especially this group here. You know how cool it is when you go up to a school and it says, hey, faculty is armed and will use whatever necessary force to protect our students and faculty. So that on face value is a pretty good deterrent, and I don't know why that could not also be applied to this exact same situation. Now, before you guys that are the purist and got to say, Don, I should be able to carry my AR-15 right up into that place and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you should, but here's the deal. You already have restriction on rights when you go to exercise your right to vote. You have to, believe it or not, you cannot wear political attire while you go vote. You can't say I'm for Trump or I'm for Harris on it, because they'll say, no, you can't. You've got to cover it up or get rid of it before you come in. So basically, if you're wearing that T-shirt, you have to conceal carry it, cover it up while you're going in to exercise your right to vote. So I think a concealed carry is not a ridiculous thing to ask here, and it should have never been taken away from us to begin with. So to cover up, but to know that, that polling place, Granny could be in there with her 38, and she's not going to take any garbage of someone that's going to come in here and think they're going to interrupt the peaceful voting rights that are taking place. So this is one of the bills that we're working on. Also, I've got a couple of legislators in mind. I've not specifically contacted on it, on carrying it, but I don't think we will have any trouble, like I say, especially with threats specifically going to Oklahoma polling places, that we should not be added one more place that should have never been taken away for us to be able to defend ourselves. Any questions on that? Who do you think is going to scream? Oh, yes, sir.
So is that why we didn't put specific information on here? It's just voting for the felon?
I'm voting for the felon. Well, I guess I'm defending everyone else when I walk in there. So also, the big, huge secret here is, folks, those guns are going into those polling places. Who are we kidding? I mean, they're going in there. And also, by the way, if we're carrying concealed into the zoo and into public trust properties like the super parks, that's protected for us there. This should not be an issue at all for this to take place. So we will see how much. I even asked if this voting takes place on higher education property, and I was told it has a time or two, but no one could tell me that it was currently taking place. So I don't care if it's voting. We got to make sure we can secure that right. So it's going to be called the Voting Protection Act. Although it's going to have a little bit different meaning than what we're used to hearing, because everybody wants to protect my vote, make sure my vote counts. Well, we want to make sure the vote can actually take place. And so that's what that's about. So anyone else got any questions on that? Yes, no, maybe? Sort of, kind of? Okay.